Hello, everybody, and you're very welcome to this webinar. My name is Joanna Hearn. I represent Trust IT. We run the Horizon Results Booster project, which is a project that focuses on joint dissemination between projects that have received EU funding. And each of the projects here today during this webinar have come together under this service to jointly disseminate their results. By this, we mean they are sharing the research results with potential users and peers. The benefits of this kind of clustering activity is to share your knowledge, leverage each other's project networks, and activate dissemination activities. I'm not going to go on too much about this, but I would invite you to visit our website at the horizonresultsbooster.eu. And if you've received EU funding, you might be entitled to join the service. I just want to make you aware of two housekeeping things. One is that the Q&A box is open if you would like to ask any questions to our panelists today. And the second is that the general chat is open if you want to discuss or post anything. If there are any technical difficulties at any point, please feel free to message me individually and I'll do my best to help you. And with no further ado, I'm going to ask Michalis to take over and we'll get started.
Okay, thank you, Joanna. First of all, welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining. Thank you to the HRB for helping us organizing this event. Michalis Smyrlis, I'm from Sphinx Technology Solutions, and I'm one of the roles I have in HEIR is the dissemination leader. Today we have with us Professor Herve Debar from HEIR as well and IMT. He will present the HEIR project during the first slot. It will take more or less 25 minutes, and then the audience can have a 5-minute Q&A. We will proceed with the AI4HealthSec project and Spyros Papastergiou. The same format will be followed across all the projects. Next, we have SMART-BEAR and Ioannis Basdekis, and we will finalize the first session with AERAS and Fulvio Frati. We will have a short coffee break for around 5 minutes, and then we will continue with the discussion, more or less an open discussion on cybersecurity challenges in healthcare environments, where it will be followed by a presentation from Georgiana Darau from AERAS. Okay, so we will start with HEIR. I leave the floor to Herve.
Okay, so thank you, Michalis.
Let me switch a bit.
Switch to the slides. Right. Oh, yes.
Okay. Oops. No. Let me share the screen.
Okay, thank you, Michalis. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here to present the activities of the HEIR project, which is related to cybersecurity for healthcare environments. A brief summary of the project. It's a research and innovation action funded under Horizon 2020. And we're addressing a topic on cybersecurity for critical sectors. And the critical sector of interest for HEIR is the healthcare sector. And given the number of issues that we've seen with cybersecurity compromise of healthcare environment, I believe this is an up-to-date and important topic whose importance is continuously increasing. The consortium includes 16 partners from 10 countries, and we have a budget of about 5 million. What is also important in HEIR is that we are developing our technology over 4 use cases that involve 5 healthcare partners, including 3 hospitals, 2 public and 1 private, and a healthcare service provider. One of the interests of HEIR is that this healthcare service provider is coupled with a regulatory agency in Norway that is overseeing, that has some oversee over this medical sector. So at a glance, we are doing essentially 2 things. One is to deliver threat hunting to hospital environments. The objective being that we want to monitor these environments in a comprehensive manner. We're interested in both in anything that is related to potential compromise, so outdated applications, misconfigurations, unknown devices, issues with inventory, incomplete cryptographic suites, and so on. And we're also interested in the live threat activity that is occurring on the networks, meaning that if there is a malicious actor perpetrating activities on this network, we're interested in understanding what this actor is doing. And we got the interest of the project in this matter with respect to threat hunting is that we combine those multiple monitoring technologies into a score of risk that provides IT operators with information about what they can do and how they can react in order to improve their score. If we give them too much information, they will not be able to deal with the amount of information, and things will pass through the cracks. So we need to simplify the information that is given to them, and we provide a priority system that enable people to select the best actions, the ones that will do the best improvement to their cybersecurity posture, in order to select the most profitable actions. In addition to this threat hunting service, we are also looking at the fact that healthcare is a sector. And so there is a need to consolidate information that is coming out of multiple hospitals into a comprehensive view so that the regulator can take action and understand whether there is a systemic risk in this sector. And examples of systemic risk would be that all hospitals share the same vulnerability with a major consequence in terms of operations. You could imagine that this could be, for example, an IRM or an imaging device that has a critical vulnerability, and all hospitals, because of legal constraints or regulations, have the same such device. So they need to be aware that there is a big issue for them, and then they should fix that issue as much as possible. So we're looking at that in the context of both IT and medical devices in order to provide as much a comprehensive view as possible over what is happening. So the innovations that we are putting forward are to develop and support a threat identification and cybersecurity knowledge-based platform, where we have an agent that integrates all of these technologies. The information is aggregated in a data stream that pushes this information to a GUI. The objective of the GUI being to simplify the way an IT operator has to deal with such events and provide him with practical ways to improve its cybersecurity posture. The second aspect is more researchy, and it has to do with quantitatively assessing the risk and the security of a given environment. And we call that the RAMA score, the risk assessment for medical applications score. The objective of this score is to measure both the risk, meaning potential existing vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, and the threat, the malicious activity. So something that we call the temporal score, that reflects the fact that you have attackers actively operating in your network. And this information is both available at the local level and is consolidated at the global level through the observatory that is meant to be installed in a regulation environment so that the regulator can look at what is happening globally in each sector. Another aspect of the medical sector is that a lot of operations deal with data information, and that there are lots of actors that are interested in accessing this data. You have, of course, the patient and the doctor. That seems quite natural, but you have also device owners, manufacturers that have in some way an interest in looking at the data, either for maintenance of the devices or for knowing more about how patients use them. And you have also medical researchers who are interested in looking at the data in order to provide new treatments or new solutions for certain diseases. And these make for a relatively complicated data access problem. And so what we are creating inside of HEIR is a privacy-aware framework which acts as a mediator between the requester and the actual data. And according to the policies of the environment and the wishes of the patient, a request that is presented by a user to access the data will be processed in different ways. Some of the information may be suppressed or redacted. Other parts of information might be aggregated or made available under a certain form only, in order to respect the privacy regulations that are in place in Europe, while preserving a possibility to access information for people who have a legitimate interest and who can benefit from this information sharing. It's relatively obvious that making progress in medicine requires sharing data, but this sharing of data cannot be uncontrolled, and that's what we're trying to provide within the HEIR privacy-aware framework. So the vision is that we are providing really two technologies that are integrated together within the graphical user interface in order to help both IT managers in hospital environments and medical personnel deal with the security of this data and the security of the infrastructure. These two components are strongly linked to one another, and the key point is really that we are trying to cover the entire ground of cybersecurity in healthcare environment. A number of technologies that we deliver are developed for healthcare, but their reach might be bigger. For example, the development that we did on the privacy-aware framework is based on the fact that we are accessing medical data, but the principle of this thing is bigger and could be leveraged in other environments for example, industrial secrecy or things like that. And given the number of malicious activity against hospitals, it's also important that what we show is it's possible to develop integrated threat hunting services that are relatively simple to use and that are within the hands of IT operators in hospital environments, and that are sufficiently efficient to allow them to prioritize their actions in an environment where there are, in the end, not so many people able to deal with these issues. The benchmarking that we provide is also within the confine of HEIR, limited to medical environments, but we're also interested in pushing this technology over to other sectors. The RAMA score is using quite standard principles of risk assessment and security monitoring, is inspired by techniques that have been used, for example, in modeling vulnerabilities, and this makes it probably suitable to a broader audience than what we're using it for. Now, it doesn't mean that we can mix apples and oranges, and clearly there is a need for a certain homogeneity in computing this RAMA score, and so clearly you would not be able to compare the RAMA score of a hospital with the RAMA score of a factory or of a supermarket. Wouldn't make sense. But for sectors who have strong regulatory needs, you could develop this technology inside each of the sectors. And in the end, the Observatory for the Security of Electronic Medical Devices provides information about what kind of threats those devices will face and how we can remediate to those threats. We have, as mentioned, four use cases. Two of them are focusing on diverse IT operations in hospitals, including classic IT services, platform management, smartphone application, so that we have a relatively comprehensive view of the modern IT in hospitals. We have one use case that is focusing on the data privacy aspects. The point being that we need, in this use case, to be able to both share the data and absolutely control the way the data is being shared, to whom and how. And the final use case is including a medical device within the perimeter of the monitoring and of the compromise, so that we can propose new ways of detecting specific compromise of these medical devices, which in the end are including significant IT components and that are probably being the victim of the same kind of issue, cybersecurity issue that we are seeing in our classic computing platforms. That's all for my presentation. I will be happy to answer questions if you have, and otherwise to let others go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Herve. Let me open the chat. No. Okay, are there any questions from the audience? Should we?
I think there are two people with their hands raised. Do you want me to allow them to speak and ask their questions verbally?
Yep.
Okay. Stephen Crabb, I think you had your hand up first. You should be able to speak.
Okay, sorry, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have had my hand up.
Oh, okay, no problem. I'll lower it again. And Andrei Catalin also has his hand up. So, Andrei, do you have a question? Or I see also Mohammed would like to speak.
Yes, I don't have a question.
Okay. Mohammed?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Go ahead, Mohammed.
You are muted, Mohammed.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for this presentation. I am doing PhD in Italy and I'm in second year. So my research is basically focused on privacy and security. And my area is about consent management. So how consent management can be done using state-of-the-art tools and technologies like blockchain, differential privacy, and zero-knowledge proofs. So my question is how you see like the European GDPR law, for instance, in the perspective of data sharing. So at the same time, we want to secure our data, we want to private our data, but simultaneously we want its transmission from across EU, for example. So how that can be done under your project, like you were explaining about your project KPIs and proposed objectives. And secondly, if you are obviously implementing blockchain technologies, how you are overcoming the major issue in GDPR principles like data removal from blockchains. So how you basically tackling this kind of issue in your project? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Both are extremely relevant. So for the first question, the access to data is based on policies. And so we need to evaluate the specificities of each data bit, each piece of information, according to the GDPR. So for us, there is information that is classified as PII, such as names, and the exact boundary of the PII is not totally clear. There is information that is medical measurements that whose access is, for example, required for a doctor to treat a patient, but whose access can be mediated for research purposes. And so by classifying this information and creating the rules that comply with the GDPR, we expect that the response that is given for each query is also compliant with the GDPR. With respect to blockchain, we use blockchain as an auditing mechanism. The point is that it's a distributed audit trail where every request by every user is logged. We try to avoid storing sensitive data in the blockchain. What we do store is the request, which might contain personally identifiable information, but this information is encrypted. So there is a layer of protection that if you wanted to have the keys to access information that might be sensitive, and it's really a might, it's unclear whether it's factually in breach of the GDPR or not, you will need to go to a judge and obtain the decryption keys. And if you don't have the decryption keys, then you don't have access to information. So clearly there are things that cannot be solved by technology, and you need to go to a court to actually resolve these.
So basically, according to you, the use of blockchain is essential and ideal where you are going to store only queries and you want to use blockchain for auditing purpose. Like obviously you want to audit what has been done by whom in the infrastructure where you are working in this kind of issue.
Exactly. It's an audit. It's focusing on auditing access and being able to discover if there was a breach earlier on. But getting a full evidence of the breach requires that you go to court and that you obtain the ability to decrypt part of the logs.
So one more question and comment. I'm really sorry for taking much time. So for instance, you are sharing data from hospital to a researcher, just an example. And for example, I'm a patient, I'm sharing my data with hospital, and hospital being an aggregator or a centralized like person who is actually owning that sensitive data. And now that hospital is sending that data to a researcher to perform the research relevant tasks. So my question is how you are basically tackling the sensitivity of that data, and at the same time you have to protect the information of patients. So do you think that differential privacy mechanisms, for example, how much noise would be suitable to, you can say, pollute that sensitive data in a way that researcher can still use that data for his research relevant tasks?
Okay, so thank you for the question. So, for example, so in terms of PII, this is something that in a typical policy, this would be redacted. So the name and surname of the patient would not be returned at any point in time by the privacy aware framework. You would get different logs, different answers to you may get multiple lines in response to your request, but none of these lines would include PII. In addition, for some of the fields, we might return the result of a mathematical operation on the data. For example, we may return only the average and the standard deviation of a certain data field, but not the exact values. And there is clearly a trade-off between the amount of operations that we carry out on the data and the usefulness of the resulting query to the researcher. And it's a complicated trade-off. I mean, typically, the more operations you perform on the data to mask it, the more likely it might be difficult to use. I don't think we have we're focusing on the technological capability. I don't think we carried out a specific study on the usefulness of these of the mechanisms we use.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Muhammad. Just to mention that there is an upcoming project, SMART-BEAR, that mostly deals with all of these questions. So I think your questions will also be targeted there. Let's now move to the next session. Thank you, Herve. That we will continue with the AI4HealthSec project and Spyros Papastergiou.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thanks, Spyros.
Okay, can you see my presentation? Yes?
Yes, we can see
Okay.
it. It's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this event. It's a real pleasure to meet you. Okay, let me say a few words about myself. My name is Spyros Papastergiou. I'm a researcher at Focal Point, which is a company located in Belgium, and provide a solution mainly on cybersecurity. I have been involved in a number of European research cybersecurity related projects. And my research interest lies in the protection of critical information infrastructure, the risk assessment, how we evaluate the critical operation. I'm also the technical manager of the AI4HealthSec project. This project has been funding under the European program for digital security, privacy, data protection, and accountability in critical sector, and in particular in the healthcare ecosystem. As you can see here, this is the 36-month project that started almost 2.5 years ago, back in 2021. So as you understand, we're very close to the end of the project. We're at the third year of the project. Here you can find more information about our consortium that consists of 14 partners, coming from 9 countries. Actually, we have a very well-balanced consortium with diverse expertise in different fields in cyber security. Also, in our consortium, we have end user, we have one hospital, medical manufacturer, we have several university and research center. The project is coordinated by CNR, and as I told you, Focal Point is the technical coordinator of the project. The main aim of the project is actually to provide and develop some security management processes for the protection of the modern digital healthcare ecosystem. As you know, this ecosystem is an environment that has experienced a massive digitalization. This ecosystem, this environment can be considered as a globally distributed, interconnected set of organization, of entity, processes, services that they rely on a highly interconnected IT infrastructure system and having different type of dependencies among them in order to establish a dynamic healthcare supply chain. This interconnected ecosystem may include different components, as I said, like medical equipment, devices such as pathology scanner, server, air element very close to the end user, such as implants, wearables, sensor that comprise the whole infrastructure. And are used in order to provide and support the operation of a number of healthcare supply chain services. However, the increased usage of all these IT systems in this model healthcare ecosystem means that all this ecosystem is becoming more vulnerable to the activities of hackers and all the actors of cybercrime. Because nowadays, as you know, the attacker are using have a range of capabilities, resources. They're using different techniques such as social engineer techniques, zero-day exploitable program, in order to conduct their attack against this different environment. So in many cases, also this attacker, in order to attack and compromise the supply chain service, actually what they do is actually to attack the weakest link of the chain. And the taking advantage of all the connection, the dependency that exists in this ecosystem, they are able to intrude and attack different organizations. For example, the attacker are able, to take advantage and exploit vulnerability that exists in the connected IT system. And so this way they can cross the corporate boundaries and can move within and across the healthcare operation. So obviously the impact of a compromised healthcare infrastructure can extend beyond the corporate boundaries, because these put at danger not only the individual organization, but also the whole ecosystem. So here we have an urgent need. There is a pressing challenge that to help the healthcare operator and all the healthcare security officers to tackle this attack and to help them to make sure that their IT systems are resilient and secure enough and against all these attack. But I think that the existing security processes and the security methodologies probably are not enough. So what we need actually is we need some new approaches, new techniques that facilitate and promote the collaboration of all the stakeholders involved in this complex ecosystem, and also promote the security-related information sharing. So in this way, we can say that this new approach needs to enable the healthcare operator to react and respond to security event, to security threat in a more collaborated way. I would like to point out and stress out the fact that the information sharing is also a very important step in order to help the different organizations to have a common understanding of what's going on, not only inside their organization, but in the whole healthcare ecosystem. Because if I have something, for example, one hospital that have different their connection with other organizations, so I have to detect something in my asset. This means that I have to communicate these the information that I have found with the other interdependent organization. In order to make so in this way, actually, AI4HealthSec project wants to, actually, this is the most innovative part of our project, is to help all these organizations to act as a sole intelligence. So in order to do that, we have adopt and use the concept of swarm intelligence. So using this concept, we're able to make this operator to act in a swarm-based management, based manner, and in this way, they will be able to evaluate, to detect and mitigate attack, threat, risks, vulnerabilities, weaknesses in a collaborative way. Responding to this need, actually, our project has introduced, in order to actually to respond to the need, to this challenge, our project has introduced a dynamic situation awareness approach. This framework, this approach, aims to collect, process, and fuse different security-related information in order to evaluate risk, to evaluate threats, to analyze security incident. So the goal of this project, of this, let's say, framework, is to help the operator in order to have a better understanding of all the technical aspects of all the threat that they're facing. The proposed framework consists of two main elements. The first element is two risk assessment methodologies. The first methodology is the evident risk management and assessment methodology that help the operator, enable the operator to identify the risk, their weaknesses, to evaluate the possibility of cyber attack or cyber threat. The second one is cyber incident handling methodology that actually help the user to estimate what are the effect of an attack, not only inside their infrastructure, but in the whole ecosystem, and to help them to understand how an attack can propagate across the whole healthcare ecosystem, and also provide some technical guidance on investigating and handling the event and the incident that has been detected. The second main element of this framework is the self-organized swarm intelligence model that, as I said before, aims to provide an intelligent collaboration, a new type of collaboration, let's say, among the entities. So is it responsible of managing and communicating the security-related information that should be communicated with all the entities inside the healthcare ecosystem. So if, as I said before, if I am a hospital that I have detected something, this means that the information that I have detected should be communicated, or the threat-related information, of course, should be communicated with the other entity. Say that, okay, I have a Tomcat that I have detected in our service attack or whatever. So because this system is interconnected with your system, please see if or how this attack may affect your organization, something like that. The proposed framework has been realized through a multi-layer architecture that you can see it at the left side of this presentation. In order to produce this architecture, we have identified a number of, let's say, functional and non-functional requirements that has been listed by different streams. In particular, we have looked into the use case and the pilot scenario that we have in our project, but also we have gathered information from external stakeholders. Okay, so here on the left side, you can see the logical view of this architecture, which is composed that we have a number of components that are grouped in specific vertical and horizontal layers in order to provide three main business services. The first business service is the evidence-based risk management and assessment services. These services incorporate all the necessary security and privacy processes, including threat assessment, impact assessment, vulnerability identification, risk analysis, risk management. We propose a treatment plan in accordance with existing security standards. The second business process is the multi-level identification and management service. This incorporates different preventing and detection capabilities, prevention detection capabilities, so that we help the organization to detect different kinds of anomalies, threat, risk, and try to mitigate the effect of an attack. In order to do that, the first thing that we need to do actually is to gather the logs from the underlying infrastructure. And also, this service is responsible to facilitate an initial evaluation and analysis of what we have detected. Then we have the last services, that is the risk-based and awareness and risk security incident and handling service, where we actually provide and help the operator to gain a better understanding of the cyber security environment. The main responsibility of this service is to further investigate and analyze what we have detected from the previous two services in order to reveal what are the attacker intention, to identify the means that have been used by the attacker, and try to somehow to reconstruct the timeline of the attack. And we have developed some mechanisms that actually will help the end user to analyze large-scale event, meaning event occurring in different interdependent organizations. As I told before, right now we're in the third year of the project. We're very close to the end. So we're in the pilot operation phase, where we have the solution and all the services that we have developed needs to be tested and evaluated. So this solution will be tested and validated in 6 main pilot scenarios. In the first scenario, the main entity is the Klinikum Nürnberger Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in Germany. As you understand, any attack to this infrastructure may have significant consequences, such as loss or manipulation of sensitive data, can block critical and important services, and also can cause death of the patient. So here we want to demonstrate to use our framework and our solution in order to raise the awareness, the cybersecurity awareness of the IT staff. And also, we're going to use the intrusion detection system mechanism, all the agents that has been adopted in our solution in order to protect the radiologic information system and picture archiving communication system that you can see on the left side of this slide. In the second pilot scenario, we are going to use the implantable medical device that has been developed by the Fraunhofer Institute for Biometrical Engineering. This pilot scenario focuses on cybersecurity of the embedding devices that actually perform a number of diagnostics functions. So these kind of devices are usually unimplanted in patients, and actually they have some weak points, such as limited resources, or they are using wireless communication. So I think that's quite interesting to see how our solution is able to protect this kind of devices. In the third pilot scenario, we're going also to use the wearable devices that has been developed also from Fraunhofer, and actually we're going to use the patient monitoring and symptom reporting platform of Fraunhofer in order to make sure that all the medical device information that are managed by this application are well protected against different type of attack, and in order to ensure that the data integrity, data confidentiality of this information are ensured. The fourth scenario is the biobank. Also here, we're going to use a specimen management system from Fraunhofer that is responsible to protect and collect and store some specimen and sensitive related information. Also here, what we want to do is to ensure that all this information remain secure using our platform and our solution. In the first scenario, we are going to use the main entity is EBIT. EBIT is a medical manufacturer from Italy. Actually, is one of the biggest manufacturers in Italy, medical equipment. And for this, we are going to use a cardiovascular information system that they have developed in order to make sure that actually this system manages medical data and images. So what we're going to do here actually to make sure that the distribution and the processing of all this information is made is protected and against any kind of attack or different type of attack. In the last scenario, we have the digital health living labs of Brighton. A living lab is actually a life ecosystem. where user production approach are used in order to test and validate different medical devices in real-life setting. The main entities of this ecosystem is the resident, actually that they are going to test the medical devices. Also, we have service provider, academic, technology provider. So here, for the purpose of the AI4HealthSec project, we will pilot and we are going to use the telehealth device and all the accompanied network. And also we are going to use the risk assessment process in order to evaluate the corresponding risk, and also the incident handling process in order to monitor the efficient and secure use of all these device. Probably in the next 3-4 months, probably we'll have more information about the result that will be produced from the pilot operation, and hopefully we will have more information about the evaluation result of our platform and our solution. So that's all from my side.
Okay, thank you very much, Spyros. So do we have any questions for Spyros from the audience? Let's see. Okay, then I guess we can continue. Thank you, Spyros, again.
Okay.
We can continue with the next presentation, which will be the SMART-BEAR project presented by Ioannis Basdekis.
So can you hear and see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for inviting SMART-BEAR to this discussion, and hope this presentation can ignite some discussion later on. So for starters, and to cite some common knowledge and ignite as the discussion to follow, health organizations face a range of diverse and ever-evolving cybersecurity threats, ranging from malicious actors exploiting legacy technical vulnerabilities to accidental data breaches due to human error. And in terms of operations, while the General Data Protection Regulation has since 2018 mandated the introduction of quite a few safeguards, still operating methods are based on functionality of legacy healthcare systems using outdated or unrepaired software, inadequate access controls, and lack of capabilities in terms of monitoring and real-time logging. When it comes to the actual systems, information systems transmit or receive via machine-to-machine methods medical data from third-party systems, which may contain vulnerabilities and that most often cannot be addressed by, let's say, the least privileged access management methods that currently these systems have in place. The implementation of data anonymization, although seems like a solution for everything, is not suitable for this healthcare domain, at least as pseudonymization is by design, because if implemented, personalized research and medical analysis results cannot be associated with the individual, which is more or less the fundamental core of this business. And when it comes to introducing the new devices, the medical or sensors used by those patients, even those devices must somehow match with the division, with the individual using them. For instance, in order to track down their good utilization. So even for these purposes, some sort of pseudonymization must exist. The use of increasingly powerful and cheaper devices is a big step forward in access to healthcare. But still, this also raises issues around privacy and security threats. In terms of data reuse, that also relevant to the question raised before, data is useful for many other purposes other than the original use with the context of a healthcare system. So interoperability should be supported at all costs, but this should be done with, let's say, appropriate security and privacy controls. And also, we need to somehow monitoring this utilization for cyber threats. So pros and cons here. In terms of end users must be also educated on the importance of cybersecurity and good security practices. However, in a high-stress environment like the healthcare, you cannot always expect from end users to, let's say, to have high demands from them and be absolutely sure that they are always keep using and adhering to the methodologies and tools that they were educated in terms of the security and privacy, and follow always the same rules. So going to the SMART-BEAR project, which is a very large in terms of budget, more or less it's 22+ million euros, and CNR is the coordinator. And putting aside the medical dimension of it and focusing direct to the technical one, a platform is implemented that integrates usage data from virus devices regarding the daily life of a study participant, manages their personal health record, and later on leverages big data analytics and machine learning capabilities to analyze all this wealth of data to obtain the insights needed to create personalized interventions. So this is why pseudonymization is in context here. Also supporting machine-to-machine collection of health data from other sources. We have synergies with the other two Horizon projects, the HoloBalance and Smart for Health. Basically, the data they are producing later on being transmitted and digested by the SMART-BEAR system in order for all of data to be part of more personalized analytics. Demonstration and validation of the use of SMART-BEAR platform takes place through large-scale pilots involving more than 4,000 participants in 6 countries. And now within this framework, specific technical questions were raised from the beginning, and within the framework of the project, were some, let's say, practical discussions happening, and we need to address all these questions I'm now indicating. More or less, the main idea is how to comply in practice with what the regulation requires, and how to ensure that even in the case where a security incident occurs, how we'll be able to detect in time, react in an organized manner, and repair the damage in a reasonable period of time. So this is more or less what it is in state. So as a solution, the design principle that we follow is that you should not trust any component, and we are applied pseudonymization to all of our transactions, separating and safeguarding this tiny subset of data that can influence the whole big data data set that all this health system maintaining. So by tracking also this utilization, by filtering out those triggers that are out of context or are invalid in general terms, by providing the well-known role-based access control or perhaps attribute-based access control to several of those exposed APIs. So all these kind of things provides a security privacy posture that makes difficult for anyone, even those who have access inside to specific components, to get access to the personal data. Most of those healthcare systems have plethora of data, but as I said, it is just a tiny fraction of those that can lead to identification. And by just safeguarding these tiny subsets, then you are able more or less to safeguard the whole project of yours. Because in the end, the plethora, the big data, as long as they are anonymized, they can store in quite a few repositories, even in blockchains. Now, last but not least, monitoring the security and privacy posture by conducting assessments in a continuous fashion, it should be also considered, because even having the most safeguarded system, vulnerabilities will occur. Software will also provide some sort of libraries that in the end can lead to exploitations. So in any case, you should not be 100% sure about your system, and you should always deploy solutions like the one that AI4HealthSec or HEIR previously mentioned. So this, as an all, provides some sort of assurance in terms of possibilities that you have a secure system in place that safeguards the privacy of your data. So this is more or less the 5-minute presentation of the SMART-BEAR. Happy to answer any question of yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ioannis. So should we open the questions now for the audience? Are there any questions? I don't see.
Yes, Mohammed has his hand raised again, so will I unmute him?
Thank you very much. My question would be, I think so, more or less the same, like you have mentioned about consent management, but you didn't give any, like maybe some insights about how you are managing the consent of a patient. For instance, if for time being he gave a consent for his data usage for research relevant purpose, and after some time he says, okay, I am revoking my consent. So in this process, data has been shared with the researcher by a hospital, for instance. So data is already with the researcher. So how you are basically managing this kind of problem, like simultaneously you have shared the data, and now you have to revoke the consent. One thing, and secondly, what are the you can say backend infrastructure, like how you are doing that technically? Are you using blockchains? Are you only relying on you can say traditional data transfer procedures, like obviously in a hospital and a researcher, and obviously they are all acting honestly, which is fairly impossible. There can be some adversaries, even researcher can be an adversary, and a hospital can play with that data. So how you are managing 4 important features like privacy, security, availability, and auditability of all this ecosystem?
So thank you for the question. I was more or less expecting this. So again, the idea is that the whole big data associated with a patient, a study participant, or whatever, is should not be protected as a whole. If you are able to somehow separate the personal data with the whole other bunch of them, then you can always have let's say a public segment that even this can reside within a blockchain. Currently, SMART-BEAR utilizes more or less a cloud that stores all the data, but it is also possible to utilize other means of repositories. As I said, the blockchain is quite a new, let's say, issue that can be exploited in this way. And assuming that previously you have somehow separated the data. And by just introducing some means of handling the identifiers between those two subsets, you are able not only to conduct analytics on the big data, but also later on to take these results, perhaps a trained machine learning model, and apply this to specific individuals, their data, and also to generate personalized interventions later on to be transmitted to those individuals. So this is how this let's sort of balancing required for conducting some operations without considering any safeguards in terms of privacy, and other operations that for sure should consider the privacy of the data. So as long as you are able to utilize different systems, different methodologies, blockchains, open repositories, whatever, and then you are able to do this kind of trick. Notably, all Horizon projects are should somehow comply with the FAIR principle, which is more or less provide the data in an anonymized manner to other projects, to other researchers, in order for them to be able to extract knowledge out of the context of the original time period of a project, and to boost either further the research barriers. So it is, let's say, a design aim for all of these projects, at least the majority of them, to be able to provide all this data in an anonymized fashion. So having this balancing with the identifiers and separation with these private and public segments, this trick can for sure be used for this context. I'm not sure that this answers your question.
Mohammed, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can. I can hear. Still, I have two more points to discuss. The point is same. You are using up to some extent anonymization for personal identifiers, and you are sharing data. But the research studies, which I have studied so far, they are actually saying that there can be some potential attacks on this kind of data. For instance, data linkage attack. If you are hiding some of the attributes like name, like gender, like some other ID, etc., still you are having some data that is still can be linked with real world data, and still you can extract much information. For example, the well-known example of Netflix price competition attacks that were made by some research groups, and more importantly, the study given by Sweeney in US on the census data. So again, don't you think that just anonymizing that particular and sensitive data is not that suitable? One must have to think for differential privacy techniques like Laplacian mechanism or Gaussian mechanism. Like the main task would be obviously how much noise would be suitable for a researcher to draw useful insights. Number one. And number 2 point, which I was discussing, for instance, you are sharing data in that kind of manner. So don't you think you are actually working on a dynamic consent management for healthcare data? Because you are at the same time following GDPR, and you are at the same time you are basically having privacy by design, and you are working on one principle of consent management, that is consent granted and consent revoked. So that's I think so that is well falling under dynamic consent management, that a patient is dynamically changing her consent preference on her shared data across researcher, across hospital, etc.
Okay. For the first one, the notion of being able to separate the data also considers the differential privacy. So in order to have a fully anonymized big data set, you need also to consider complex queries associated with other public repositories. Basically, if you have a study participant living in an isolated island, you will always risk this this identification problem. But still, you need also to perform this type of activities in order to be absolutely sure that the so-called result of the anonymization process of yours actually produces a fully anonymized data set. So differential privacy for sure should be considered in this context. Now, when it comes to the consent, as I said, the GDPR is associated with the personal data. So as long as you are able to maintaining the data for the time period that this consent is valid, then you are not risking any issue with regards to the allowance issued by the end user himself or herself. What happens when the end user, the study participant, chooses to revoke this consent? Then either you can anonymize the data associated with him or her. You can always delete if, for instance, those data are not part of any prior to this revoking activity machine learning process, so on and so forth. So there are a couple of procedures that you can apply in order to comply with this right issued by the study participant. Still, there are some exceptions also indicated by the GDPR, for instance, for research activities. So the associated with the period that you are storing the medical data, for instance. So yeah, this is more or less the idea behind also the consent. In terms of data transferability, you should always, and thinking about the whole wealth of data, you should always be able, from the technical perspective, to gather all the data associated with the participant and provide to him or her in a digital manner, which is not always the case, speaking about the current, the functionalities the legacy systems currently support. So still, as I said, there are some challenges imposed by the GDPR that the majority of legacy systems are not currently support. And this is why some of these research activities are focusing on going beyond the state of the art and trying to deal with these matters, and trying to also to provide visibility whether these are practically able to be implemented or not.
All right, thank you very much. That's a very, very interesting idea, I must say, and I will definitely be exploring your technical papers on SMART-BEAR. And I think that could be explored for future results as well. Thank you so very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Ioannis. There are two more questions by Said and Andreas, but I think it would be better to continue with AERAS in order to be in alignment with the agenda, and then move this question to the second session. Is that okay with you, Ioannis?
Yeah, whatever suits the program.
Okay, great. So let's now continue with Fulvio Frati from AERAS.
Thank you very much, Michalis. If I can share if Ioannis release.
Thank you, Fulvio. Just to answer the question from Muhammad, the presentation and actually the whole webinar will be available in HEIR's YouTube channel after the end of this session. Okay. Thank you, Fulvio. You can start now.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me present myself first. My name is Fulvio Frati. I'm from the University of Milan, and we are coordinating the AERAS project. AERAS is a Marie Curie project, and actually I'm seconded in Spins Analytic in Cyprus. So just to see the identity card of the project, the full name of the project is a cyber range training platform for medical organization and system security. And as I said, we are a Marie Curie project, particularly a RISE project that see the exchange of personnel between universities and companies of the European Union. The duration should be 48 months, but it's been extended to 66 due to the COVID outbreak. And the project has started in the 1st December 2019, just before the COVID outbreak. So since the project is based on second gen movement within the European Union, due to the COVID outbreak, we had to stop and freeze the project until we can freely move among countries. And at the moment, we are fully started activity only from the 1st of this year. Project consortium is composed by 7 partners from university and companies. First of all, the University of Milan, that is the coordinator. Then we have the Cyprus University of Technology in Limassol. Then we have IEGIS in Germany. And we have also the Sphinx Analytics from Cyprus and the Technology Institute of Heraklion. And then we have the 2 pilots that are the Hospital University of Heraklion, Pagny, and the Hospital of the University of Patras. The total budget is around €1.5 million. And we expect 31 secondment. As I said, the secondment are a little delayed due to the COVID outbreak, but now we are fully in charge and we are trying to cope with the delay. As you can imagine from the title, the overall goal of the project is to develop a realistic and adjustable cyber range platform for cybersecurity training within the healthcare sector. In this sense, we are complementary to the other project that you had already seen, because we are not focused on providing a platform to provide services to healthcare, but we are providing a platform that provides training services to all kinds of healthcare. And our goal is also to prepare our stakeholders that are characterized by different types of responsibilities and expertise and role within the healthcare organization to cope with a critical cyber threat and cyber attacks to reduce the security risk of the overall company. What we want to do to provide is a platform for virtual cyber warfare that enable the simulation of the operation and effect of security control to offer hands-on training based on all the activity that the common employee are during their common work activities to defend against cyber threats. In a nutshell, our objective is first to develop a cybersecurity platform, and that is based on models. This model I call it the cyber range security service model, and the model cover any kind of configuration and customization and content that are provided by our platform. And the model will drive the generation of a cyber range simulation and training programs that are effectively the actual training program that we want to provide to our customers. We want also to develop a novel cybersecurity risk analysis model that combines traditional and innovative technique in order to have a methodology to continuously estimate the risk of the company and adapt our simulation and our programs to the evolution of the risk landscape of the company that has adopted our infrastructure. And we want also to develop a method that supports adaptation of our cyber range simulation and emulation with respect to the actual assurance landscape of the company, where we are applying our framework in order to see if the training that we are applying is reflected in the actual state of the company itself. If we see that the assurance level of the company has improved after the execution of our training activity, we can say that our training has been effective and we can validate the goodness of our approach. To develop our cyber range, we want to develop capabilities required to deliver an effective cyber training within a cyber range. So our platform will include tools for emulation, for simulation from the security assurance assessment, and for a visualization of data and to the user, and to give the user the possibility to enter in the emulated environment and execute the cybersecurity exercises that are part of the training programs. And we wanted to integrate in our platform the capability to deliver a realistic and highly adjustable cyber training. As I said, we want to create a link between the assurance level of the company and the training that will be administered and will be executed by our trainees. Our platform is divided in different layers, and in the core of our platform, as I said before, there are the SRCA model. In the model, we want to define any aspect of the training that you want to do. We want to describe the infrastructure that we want to emulate. We want to describe the risk and the threat that will be part of our training, and we want to also model the training activity itself. When we have all tools that are related to the implementation of the cyber range, to emulate, to simulate attacks, and to generate the training program. And we have also training tools to be able to visualize and adapt our training program with respect to the evolution of the assurance level of the company. And then we have our pilot with the University of Patras and the Hospital of Heraklion that will apply our framework and will help us in validate the goodness of our infrastructure. We have defined a methodology that is composed of 4 steps in order to be sure that our approach and our training is aligned with the overall security assurance program that are in place within the organization that is adopting our cyber range. And we want also to cover all the distinct security mechanisms that are available to the organization. All of these will be described inside the models. So the first step of our model, the most important one, is the definition of the model. Our cyber range security assurance model are defined in 4 sub-models. One describing the target organization, in which all the assets of our organization will be described and modeled. Then we have a sub-model based on the cybersecurity assurance, where we want to define all the security threat, risk, and security mechanisms used to mitigate them that are in place inside the organization. Then we have the risk assessment submodel that model all the risk and the likelihood of the risk and impact inside our organization in order to use them to adapt and to improve our training scenario. And we have a submodel about threats and incidents that will be used to generate a new scenario. All the content of the model will be derived by the analysis of our pilots, and if the project will be also developed in the future, will be derived from the analysis of the customer that will apply our infrastructure. And the model will be used then to drive the instantiation of all training scenarios, because they contain all the information that we need to build the training activities. The second phase is the generation of the cyber range, the simulation and training program. So we have defined the organization, all the assets of our pilot. Then we have to generate the training activity, creating the content that you want to propose to our trainees, to create the virtual environment that you want to use to execute our training. The training program will be based on the models that we have defined in the phase 1, and will use all the risk and cost benefit model to evaluate the likelihood and the impact of the risk in order to adapt then our training program to the evolution of the assurance level of the company. When you have the third phase, that is the delivery of the programs that we have prepared, and it will be done using the tools that will be developed, that will emulate the virtual environment that the trainee will use to execute the training exercise, like in a real cyber range, to simulate attacks that the user should be able to react and to reconfigure the system in order to train on how to build countermeasure to specific attack, and also using the visualization tool that we are developing that will give an overview of the state of the trainee and the trainee scenario that is using, and also will allow to enter the emulation scenario. The trainee performances will be continuously monitored by our performance monitoring system, and all the data will be visualized via the visualization tool. When we have the fourth phase that is applied after the training or during the training, that is used to analyze the goodness of our training activity and to identify deficiencies and gaps in our programs in order to try to improve them. We do this monitoring the activity of the trainees and monitoring the assurance level and assurance landscape of the company that adopt our platform. Why we are doing this? Because our idea is that if the assurance level of the company improve during and after the training of the employees, means that also the training activity are effective and are adapted to the needs of the company that are implementing our solution. As I said, we are still in the requirement definition phase because our project started only this year. We are running and we wanted to develop a full solution just at the end of our project. That's all from my side. If there are any questions, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much, Fulvio. There is one question from Javier asking, how does this model framework comply with security standards?
Yeah, we are aware. Thank you for the question. the model that we are preparing are able to describe any kind of security threats and the security standard. And we are making a study about all the threats and all the NIST and the CERT models that describe the security threats and security security issue. And I think we can easily adapt to any kind of security standard.
Okay, thank you very much, Javier. Okay, great. Okay, one more question by Said. You mentioned that COVID impacted the project duration, but how did it impact the scientific part of the project? Are the initial assumptions still valid, such as the methodology, the requirements, and the vision technologies?
So, as I said before, a Marie Curie project is based on secondment. So, if you cannot have secondment, you cannot have activity, because this is the philosophy of the Marie Curie project. At the moment, we discussing with the project officer, we are trying to cope also to the change of the scenario that we have. But we are facing now. But as we can see from the presentation of my colleague in the second part of the webinar, there is still a great need for the healthcare section of the healthcare sector of training of framework for training in cybersecurity, because still cybersecurity, even if in the COVID period, the healthcare was one of the first sector that was under the lens of the authorities, still there is a great need of cybersecurity in healthcare.
Great. Thank you very much. So I recommend to pause for a 5 minutes coffee break now and reconvene in about 5 minutes, so 12:35 for the second session, which will be an open discussion. And most of the questions will be asked. Okay? Okay. 5-minute break. Yes, yes. Okay, hello everyone. Let's start the second session of this webinar. We will start this session with a presentation by Georgiana Darau from AERAS about the cybersecurity challenge and training expectation for the medical domain. And then the rest of the session will continue with an open discussion on cybersecurity challenges in the healthcare sector. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Well, I think also my presentation is a good start of the discussion. Okay, I will share my screen. Yes. So can you see the presentation?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay, that's great. So hi all, and nice to see you here, and I'm glad to be participating in this webinar. I'm Georgiana Darau, and I'm an SSH consultant at IAG's IT Research, Social Sciences and Humanities. So I have a background in social psychology, and I'm participating in the AERAS project, and I did one of the secondments. Last year, I moved to Greece in Patras, and I worked at the University of Hospital. So that's where I conducted a qualitative study with the medical personnel to learn more about the reality in the medical domain and how, if they understand what they understand by cybersecurity and what their challenges, and if, of course, they are willing and interested to follow such a training, because for our project this is very important to know. So I will go very shortly. Just wanted to present the main highlights of the study, because it's very interesting, and I think it's very important to consider when developing any platforms and any softwares for the cybersecurity of the medical domain. So for this study, I conducted 27 interviews, in-depth interviews with doctors from diverse medical specialties, and I tried to have participants from different EU countries. So I interviewed people from Greece, Romania, and France. So it's a nice representance in terms of parts of European countries.
Georgiana, we have an
about their yes.
There was a minor interaction with your corruption with your internet. Can you please repeat?
Yes. From where? Yeah, I just saw that
from the EU countries that participate in this study.
Yes, the participants. So yes, the participants, there were like 27 participants from EU countries, Greece, Romania, and France. And then the information we wanted to gather was about their data access needs and challenges. So what kind of patient information they handle every day, the way they communicate with their colleagues, because in the medical domain, you always have to share information and you need to discuss with your colleagues or like just ask for advices. And of course, we are all encountering technical challenges, just like me now. Like sometimes the connection is not stable. And then the second part would be about the cybersecurity training expectations. If they're aware about this, if they would like to learn more, and in what way they would like to learn more, to educate them about the cybersecurity problems and challenges in the medical domain. So here are the main highlights. So it's good to know that more than half of the participants, 66% of them, they say that they are actually sharing patient information both inside and outside of the health institution they're working in, because you always have to transfer patient information from maybe one hospital to another, labs and all kind of other institutions. And also the main means of communication with their colleagues is through internal medical platforms, emails, professional, and many times personal through phone, fax, and medical letters. So here, interesting point is to that I learned from them is that many of the times they use ways of communicating. They mention sometimes that
yeah. Georgiana, I think we have an issue again with the internet. So just confirm this is not on our side, right? This is on Georgiana's side. Okay. Okay.
No, you're coming through clear.
Okay. Georgiana, you're back, I guess. If there's a minor interruption again, you can continue from the mean of peer communication, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I was just saying about the means of communication. That many medical professionals sometimes are using unsecure ways of communicating because that's the easiest way to do and the most like at handy because sometimes they're using SMS or like WhatsApp or like a messenger just to send information from one colleague to another because the medical platforms who are like very secure, they are not that easy to use and not like handy to use. And sometimes they're too secure, so they cannot easily communicate with other professionals. And then it's interesting to know that almost half of the participants are still using paper files to consult or share patient information among colleagues. Also, many physicians, like from all three countries, mentioned that the system or the computer they work on often gets stuck or crashes. And then, for example, in Romania and in Greece, doctors mentioned that the technology infrastructure is very old and cannot handle the new softwares that the hospital or the institution has put in place. So again, this is the reality of the healthcare domain, and I think it's very important to know when developing softwares. And then on the second part, most of the participants would like to learn more about cybersecurity and actually have a practical course about this. Because many of them admitted they don't know much about it and they do not know how to handle such a situation in case of an emergency. And they would like to know what it means, what risks, the real risks for the healthcare system, and of course, how to engage and learn the best practices to protect themselves and of course the patients and the hospital. And then many of them mentioned that they want to receive and follow simulation trials of real case scenarios of security breaches and be taught step by step how to handle the situation. Like maybe even having on the screen, okay, please call the IT department, debranch your device, close all the windows. So very simple steps on how to handle this emergency. And of course, like these results were very important for the contribution in our project AERAS, and the results are included in one of the deliverables that we recently just published. And that is all. I try to go faster, not to avoid the connection problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Georgiana. Okay, let's now start the open discussion with the questions asked in the previous session. I think there is a raised hand. Wait. Okay, Muhammad, you have a question on this session?
Yes, a simple question. Like she mentioned that she had like a detailed survey about the qualitative implications of this project. So I was wondering, like, did you know about the obstacles, technical obstacles, like doctors don't know about cybersecurity or security and privacy tools? In the same way, patients are not so well aware about these kind of tools, and researchers at the same time sometimes don't know about these kind of tools. So in your presentation, you didn't mention about the aspects of being technically aware, the stakeholders which are the part of this system. So don't you think this is one of the obstacles that should be, you can say, tackled in this particular way, that okay, you want to implement cybersecurity relevant tools, but first of all you should make some awareness about these tools and technologies, so that before using diving deeper these kind of things, a person should know what is a security perspective for me and for my data, and how to avoid these kind of things. Thank you very much.
Georgiana, we cannot hear you if you speak.
Well, I'm not sure if I should reply to this question.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, please go.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, I think that's why it's important to know also, like, to know the context that we are working on in these projects, and that's why in my team, I mean, I'm working with the software developers and like the technical team, and that's why we thought it's important to know, to conduct this qualitative study as well, to learn more about the reality of doctors. Like, I often hear them saying, yes, we know it's not safe, and we heard about cybersecurity issues and attacks, but this is the fastest way to do because they're all busy. So, like, by knowing their reality and their like everyday life and daily struggles, let's say, I think that's the best way to develop and design the platforms in such a way that it meets their needs and expectations as well. I'm not sure if this responded to your...
No, you are right. I'm following your point, but the point is, like, when we discuss about, for example, about blockchain, like that was a point was mentioned by one of the presenter about SMART-BEAR, that obviously you want to have some technological innovations, but for example, you want to have blockchain in your infrastructure, but stakeholders don't know about blockchain. They don't like bother to discuss the in-depth details. So I was just wondering that on a large scale perspective, don't you think that the awareness about these kind of stuff is also an important perspective when you are surveying and you are asking some questions about the usage? Because in my master's thesis, I was you can say discussing my idea with land registry authority there in Pakistan. Then I get to know that they don't know about how to basically tackle the issues which are occurring due to centralized server, and how to avoid using state-of-the-art tools like blockchain. So for me, in my research, my professor asked me to have a perspective and have a point of awareness before asking individuals to opt for these technologies. That's what I was meant by this question. Thank you very much.
Okay. Muhammad, may I help a bit Georgiana on this? I mean that...
Yeah, sure.
In the healthcare domain, it's like the clinicians, so the end users do not need to know the exact technology. They just want to see the results. I think that the overall study targeted the healthcare experts. So explaining to a healthcare expert what is a blockchain might not be of use for them, because they just want to see things happening. Obviously, for the IT department of a healthcare organization, it would be meaningful to provide such a presentation to explain them how you do things. but the end user will most probably be lost when you try to explain overcomplicated terms so that they are not, so much attached because of their background.
And
Don't you think
like,
you are encouraging privacy by law as compared to privacy by design with this perspective?
Sorry,
I mean, if you are following this kind of justification, then don't you think you are going to have privacy by law? For example, an hospital made some data leakage, and now he says, okay, I was not well aware about the data leakage issue, so please pardon me. Okay, if this is an issue, then I have to go to jail and I have to go to judge. The question is privacy by design.
Yeah,
we can't trust. The point is we can't trust any individual in all this ecosystem. If we can't trust, then how we can say that we are not explaining about blockchain, about the individual data, you can say storage process, and still we are saying, okay, you must use blockchain, but you don't need to discuss, don't need to know about the in-depth details of blockchain operations. Still, you are a part of a blockchain network. So this is something like which is weird for me.
if you like, I can say. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So Spyros, you can take it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I may, there are several points that are being raised here. The first one is that no matter what, there's always a human behind the keyboard, and so no matter what no matter how good the technology is, human mistakes happen, and that's why we have legal courts and legal frameworks, and we have to obey those legal frameworks. I'm also, totally unsure that blockchain, for example, will solve this. To me, what blockchain has brought to, for example, the financial world is an industrialization of Ponzi schemes and not really a useful thing. So it really has to do with the difficulty we humans have to keep up with the pace of technology, and especially in the healthcare domain, the difficulty that we have to face with equipments that are very expensive, that are heavily regulated, and so that are difficult to maintain in the way we maintain our usual IT devices. And so clearly what we're trying to do is retrofit 2022 or 2023 attacks over equipments that are 20 or 25 years old. So, and that's very true for healthcare. That's also true for many other domains. So we have to cope with retrofitting our technologies in clearly what is not the best way or the ideal way where we would want to retrofit them. But we need to take the practical approach of creating gateways and bypasses where we can, which is probably not the best place that we want. And that's the reason why we have detection, because we cannot prevent everything. That's the reason why we use this privacy-aware framework as a gateway to data rather than breaking the data, rather than embedding the data into protection mechanisms. Simply because today, all these systems, they work and they serve a purpose, and we cannot ignore the fact that they serve a purpose, and that if cybersecurity prevents the purpose from occurring, people will just go away from cybersecurity and not adopt what we're proposing.
Yeah. Spyros, you wanted to comment something on this?
Yes, that's one thing. I agree with you, and in terms that I think that we need to make sure that all the complex security management processes should be completely transparently to the end user. So I think that the success of the security technology lies in the fact that they should be adopted by the end user without knowing how all these different technology actually works. If we don't achieve this, I think that we will not achieve the ultimate the final goal is actually to make sure that the security technology can be adopted in an efficient way from the end user without knowing how this technology actually works. This is how I see it.
Okay.
Yes, as I mentioned also in the presentation, doctors mentioned they want simple steps. They want to know, okay, debranch the computer, close the window. Like they don't want to know what blockchain means, and they are already busy with a lot of their stuff, like from the medical work. So they don't have the time to learn more about this.
And I think that overall, and going back to your comment, Muhammad, but please feel free to ask the question. I mean, this is that's why there is a great need for the cyber range program nowadays, because at some point we understand that even if you have the best cybersecurity experts in the world and the best cybersecurity out there, humans will need to get trained in order to understand the basics. And that's why I think that if you overcomplicate the terms to an end user that is not having your background, for instance, as an IT or a computer scientist, it would create bigger issues than the ones that it tries to resolve.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you. Okay.
I think we can take the questions.
No, there are two more.
Two more.
Yeah, let's move to the question that Said did in the first session, targeted the SMART-BEAR project, asking that you are using RBAC, role-based access control, as an access control. So he asked whether you can also use attribute-based access control.
Well, in the end users scenarios of the project, there were no reason for, let's say, using the attribute-based access control. Still, the architecture, as well as the components implementing it, in our case, in terms of API management and identity management, we're using Kicklock and Kraken-D. So those two in combination support the attribute-based access control. Still, our end user's case, there is no need, let's say, for this methodology to be enabled.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, then there was a question by Nero, not sure if I'm correctly spelling your name, asking, don't the organization have security policies in place to handle these issues? I guess I can
possibly respond for France, because I've been talking to a number of hospitals in France, and the level of preparedness is very heterogeneous. Some hospitals have a really minimal IT department whose focus is to just make the system work, and in that respect, they're kind of subcontracting in anything that comes out of the ordinary, and they're usually subcontracting cybersecurity whenever there is an incident, which means that we're in incident response mode rather than proactively increasing the security level of the overall sector. I know of at least one hospital in France which is operating its own SOC so security operating center with 5 people dedicated to fighting cyber attacks. To me, it's very few, and I know that of another hospital who has participated in cyber range exercises and in simulating responses to cyber crisis. So there is a certain awareness of these issues in hospitals, but I'm afraid that the current state of affairs is that hospitals are hit by ransomware, that very rapidly the whole hospital gets crippled, and that it takes months, if not years, to go back to normal operations, and that's a sad state of affairs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Herve. And on top of that, Nero, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. It's that we need to understand that hospitals do not always come hand to hand with how other infrastructure operate. Keep in mind that hospitals also operate with medical devices, that the security is left with the vendors. And that's where it comes other regulations. Also, hospitals tend to have systems that are utilized by non-security experts. And even if security policies exist, they are not always enforced. So I guess this is why the healthcare domain is that complex, because it's trying to solve an issue, but you know, there are multiple actors that need to be educated before finding a perfect solution, if there is a perfect solution out there. Okay, and then moving to another really good question by Andrea, asking that here he's from Argentina, that saying that there are institutions that are big, but there are also small institutions. The same applies obviously to Europe and all the world. And then he asks, how do you manage the cybersecurity in cities with poor technology and little knowledge about this issue?
Okay, so I can start the discussions. It turns out that, you know, beyond working on HEIR, I also have links to the local ecosystems. So you're talking to bakers, to automobile repair shops, to these kind of structures. And these guys just don't have any bandwidth to deal with cybersecurity issues. So there are two things that we can do. The first thing that we can do is educate them, and for that we organize monthly or bi-monthly seminars with the local, you know, small businesses, you know, 1 hour for lunch, and we try to educate them into the minimal best practices. You know, update your systems, make sure that you don't click on any link, really the basics, so that if they somewhat minimize their risk. Clearly, you know, attackers are being clever, and it's getting easier to get tricked, but we're trying to still diminish that risk. We're also providing guidelines and tools so that these people can recover more easily from an incident. And so if they follow those guidelines and participate in a slightly more advanced programs with us, we're trying to teach them backups and how to go back to normal in the minimum amount of time, because it's quite clear to us that many of these will get compromised at some point in time.
Okay. Yeah, Ioannis, please.
Yeah, it's always difficult to fully comply with the GDPR regulation, but let's not forget that GDPR regulation applies also in cases that a European citizen travels to other countries as well. So even though the national legislation has perhaps its own safeguards in terms of security and privacy, whenever a European citizen travels to other countries, and in particular the ones that we are currently referring to, then some additional safeguards must be in place for protecting the privacy of the data generated by this particular individual. So the scope of GDPR is more extended and covers other areas as well in other countries. Let's not forget that.
Okay. Thank you very much. And on top of that, I guess that, sorry, Spyro, you will be next. Just a minor comment that on top of that, I think that overall, Andrea and everyone, that okay, cybersecurity costs a lot if you want to have a really sophisticated system. What it doesn't cost that much is the training. And that's why I really think that projects like AERAS or other projects that are currently on top of Europe's, you know, prioritization, is that they could help people regardless of the cost that they are willing to pay to get trained, or even with the use of free educational material that are being produced by big organizations like there, or by cyber range programs that can be tailored to their organization needs. So that's why I guess we are moving to this direction now. But please, Spyros, please.
Yes, also I would like to say that, as I said in my presentation, definitely the healthcare ecosystem is very complex, the connected environment, okay? So in this environment, we have different type of organizations that operate. We have large industry, we have hospital, we have also SMEs or micro enterprises that also comprise this supply chain environment. Okay, so actually an attacker, if he wants to attack and compromise, let's say, the hospital, usually probably he's going to attack the weakest link of the chain, which is probably would be the micro enterprise or an SME that don't have enough budget or enough resources in order to adopt very, enough countermeasures in order to deal with this attack. So usually what they do is actually they compromise the weakest link and use this link as the stepping stone in order to attack their target. That would be could be a hospital or whatever. In this way, I think that the collaboration is very critical. Definitely, training is one. I think that the first countermeasure is very important. But also, I think that information sharing is also very important. So I think that it's very critical. All the environment, all the organizations that participate in this environment to work together, to collaborate, to share information. Not only is the handling information, okay, this is happening in my organization, but also how they deal and handle incident, security event, attack occurring inside their organization. So somehow they need to share not only incident information, but also knowledge on how they can, the other organization participate in this environment can deal with some similar attack. So definitely SMEs probably don't have the budget, they have limited resources, financial resources, human resources, so cannot put too much money or effort in order to adopt advanced, innovative, and very expensive solution. But if they work together with the big players, then probably they can gain enough experience, and that will help us to deal with cyber threat and cyber incident.
Thank you, Spyros. So I guess there is one more comment again targeting the SMART-BEAR project that was asked during the first session about the way you pseudonymize things. So can you please walk us through the procedures, let's say?
So yes, the whole idea is to be able to introduce different identifiers. So for instance, when a synergetic project transmits data to your cloud, then you should always switch between those identifiers. And the basic idea is to have some sort of intermediate component that performs this job, which is not only to switch the identifiers, but also to make sure that no personal data are digested in a wrongful manner. So, for instance, when you are about to conduct medical-related machine learning analytics, you don't need the postal codes or first and last names. So you need to exclude those prior of them being digested to your big data repository. So by implementing this type of techniques, by either on the self component or something you are developing, you are more or less be assured that the medical science is applied to the big part of your data, which is the anonymized ones. And whenever specific use scenarios needed to be supported, for instance, communications, personalized interventions, triggering for whatever reason a specific patient, GDPR rights, applications, so this kind of things, then this portion can be also utilized in combination and support other activities. So this is the idea.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess that this goes to the participants of this webinar. They can always visit the project's website and read. If they are interested in reading more and learning more, they can go through the public deliverables, also the research work that was being done by the researchers of the project that are mostly available in Google Scholar, I guess. And I think that we are on time. I don't know if the audience would like to ask any other questions. Okay. Then I think we can conclude this webinar. I would like to thank, first of all the participants or the panelists, Georgiana, Ioannis, Spyros, Fulvio, and Herve. I would like to thank the HRB team, Joanne, Nicholas, and Julie that helped us organizing this event, disseminating it, etc., etc. I think it was a really interesting event and really interesting ideas were discussed. Hopefully we will continue the collaboration among the project. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye, everybody.